There's a story going around at the moment about a sold-out theatre performance. But it's weightier than that. The burden of history, the responsibility of artists, the moral dissonance of cultural engagement during war. On a rainy evening the other day in Amsterdam, two Russian celebrities, Vladimir Pozner and Ivan Urgant, took to the stage in what was billed as an apolitical evening of nostalgia and travel stories, and outside Ukrainian protesters shouted through the gates, "Shame on you. Russia is a terrorist state and Russian propaganda kills." Vladimir Pozner, once the urbane voice of Soviet policy to Western ears, and Ivan Urgant, Russia's affable late-night host, are no ordinary entertainers. Pozner, who turned 90 this year, is a veteran Cold War space bridges, a master of civilized television discourse, and by his own admission a former propagandist. Urgant, a younger figure often compared to Jimmy Kimmel, was one of the very few public figures in Russia who posted a black square on Instagram with the words "No to War" on February the 24th, 2022, for which his show was swiftly cancelled. Since then, both have remarkably remained silent. Urgant retreated into vagueness. Pozner went into semi-retirement, reflecting on morality and censorship. They're now touring Europe with a theatrical travelogue, a show pointedly stripped of politics, but freighted with political meaning. Critics called the event a stab in the back to Ukrainian refugees. Protesters stood in the rain, wrapped in national flags. They argued that Pozner's presence on a European stage legitimized a voice that has equivocated on war, and echoed Kremlin talking points about NATO's culpability, and yet others warned against adopting the censorship logic of the very regime being condemned. If we silence cultural figures because of their nationality or silence, we're defending liberal values. Or are we undermining them? This tension between the ethics of platforming and the ethics of exclusion is what makes this event so revealing. Pozner has long walked the tightrope between complicity and conscience. In a 2016 debate with Navalny, he admitted that yes, censorship exists, and I accepted it. More recently, he told Forbes that offers from Western outlets required him to denounce Putin, which he refused, claiming that that would not be journalism but theatre. Yet at the same time, Pozner suggested the West provoked the war by refusing to block Ukraine's NATO ambitions, a view dangerously aligned with Kremlin narratives. His refusal to comment further on the Amsterdam protests was not surprising. Silence for Pozner has become a moral pose, one that avoids offence, but also evades responsibility. Urgant's trajectory is more disappointing. His initial courage faded into a kind of studied absence. He's neither used his platform to defend Ukrainian lives nor confronted his country's crimes. And that silence might be strategic or fearful or merely convenient, but for Ukrainians in exile, it reads as betrayal. Amsterdam's theatre defended the show as an exercise in freedom of expression, but freedom is not immunity from scrutiny. And the question is not whether Pozner and Urgant should be allowed to speak, but whether they ought to be celebrated, whether cultural memory ought to be severed from political conscience and consequence. So what does this controversy teach us? That the line between nostalgia and propaganda is perilously thin. And that moral ambiguity, when performed as entertainment, can wound those already exiled and bereaved. And that in a world at war, silence is not neutrality. It's a choice. Pozner and Urgant are brilliant, articulate, and undoubtedly loved by many, but brilliance doesn't excuse absence, and if they will not speak truth to power, we must be brave enough to ask why, and if necessary, to bring the curtain down.